Last night we talked to the governor of Arkansas, a Republican called Asa Hutchinson. He just vetoed a bill that banned the chemical castration of children in Arkansas. We asked him why he did that. He was gracious enough to come on and explain. Early on in our conversation, though, it became clear that Governor Hutchinson hadn't done a lot of research into the topic. There are a lot of things he didn't seem to know. For example, in February, one of the oldest medical journals in the world, the BMJ, summarized researchers' findings on puberty blockers, the chemicals at the heart of this debate. Here's what they found, quote, puberty blockers used to treat children aged 12 to 15 who have severe and persistent gender dysphoria had no significant effect on their psychological function, thoughts of self-harm, or body image. However, as expected, the children experienced reduced growth in height and bone strength. So there's that. Keep in mind, the governor said children needed these drugs in order not to become clinically depressed. That study suggests the drugs don't help. They only hurt children's bodies. But there are other studies, for example, one conducted by London's Tavistock Clinic, that found that puberty blockers, in fact, increased instances of self-harm and suicidal ideation in some children. And those aren't the only studies that have found that. Just days ago, Britain's National Institute of Health and Care Excellence determined that there is, quote, very low evidence supporting the idea that puberty blockers should be given to minors. The limited research we do have suggests that permanent life-altering treatments don't make gender dysphoria any better. In fact, those drugs may make it worse. The most thorough peer-reviewed study on the topic was conducted in Sweden. Researchers followed the outcomes of people who had undergone sex reassignment surgery, which the Arkansas bill bans for minors. 10 to 15 years after they underwent sex reassignment surgery, the suicide rate for patients in Sweden had jumped by more than 2,000%. How's that a victory? It's not. It's a tragedy. We asked Asa Hutchinson about any research he might have read that contradicted these facts. He didn't point to any. He clearly hadn't read any that contradicted those facts. And that led us to wonder, how exactly was Asa Hutchinson convinced that vetoing this bill was a good idea? You clearly aren't familiar with the research, and so my question is, have you spoken to any of the biggest employers, the big companies in Arkansas, about this? Have you taken any calls from Tyson's, from Dillard, from Walmart? Has anyone from those companies called you about this bill?
No.
Have you, and I just want to be clear on this, have you spoken to any corporate interest in the state of Arkansas about this bill?
Tucker, I answered that. I answered that question, and I said, no, I have not.
Asa Hutchinson was quite definitive on that, and of course we had to take his word for it. He was very emphatic, no, I haven't. But it looks like he was, how to put this, lying. The day that we spoke to Asa Hutchinson, in fact, the Walton family endorsed his decision to veto the bill that had just passed the Arkansas legislature. Now, the Walton family is not just any family, it's the richest family in the world, and of course the most powerful family in the state of Arkansas. They control Walmart and Sam's Club. And they wanted Asa Hutchinson to know that he had done exactly what they wanted him to do. Quote, we support Governor Asa Hutchinson's recent veto, the Walton family wrote. Any policy that limits individual opportunity also limits our state's potential. So if Walmart's going to sell a lifetime supply of drugs to trans youth, it would be nice if Asa Hutchinson could veto this legislation and any bills like it. It's possible that Asa Hutchinson ignored the wishes of the Walton family and trusted the experts, though we couldn't find any experts who agreed with him. What's interesting is we spoke to someone today who knows Asa Hutchinson very well, who says, confirming our worst fear, that yes, he very much would like a board seat at Walmart when he leaves. Just a few days ago, by the way, Asa Hutchinson appeared on this network to admit that before making any decisions on transgender issues, he first considers what, and we're quoting, major global corporations think.
The home of some major global corporations here in Arkansas. They're certainly worried about the image of our state, but we're trying to send the signal that you can protect conscience, you can protect girls in sports without being discriminatory and trying to say we're not diverse and tolerant of different lifestyles. And that's important for us as a state and what we have to achieve as a nation.
Oh. We're the home of some major global corporations, Governor Hutchinson said, and they worry about the image of the state. They worry less about the children of the state, who, if Asa Hutchinson had had his way, could continue to be chemically castrated by quack doctors. Tells you a lot. And we'll be watching to see if Asa Hutchinson winds up on the board of Walmart. We really will.